also have the quarterly newsletters that we put out. Those are free tonight. We got 10 of the last 2, so if you'd like to pick one up on your way out, that'd be fine. I'd like to thank the Ladies Club. I got a lot of information from these 3 scrapbooks you see right there. Those were made by Thelma Matthews of Homer's entire career. And a lot of it included the Ladies Club events, of course. And Thelma left those to Don Henderson, and Don passed them on to me, and I get information out of them every time I look at it. They're very, very interesting. I'm going to end up leaving those to the museum, and so they will be here for forever there. Also, thank James Guthrie. I got a lot of information out of his book, which pointed me in different directions, and then I've corrected some dates that he was in error on, and they're hard to find when you find some of the newspaper articles. Okay, how did I get started in golf? Well, when I was 7, 8 years old, Dad took me out to Otis Park with my brother, and we drove through, and he stopped up by, you can tell it's a different generation of golfer. I still call number 16 14, because if you grew up when I did, 16, 17, and 18 were 14, 15, and 16. So I'll screw those up every now and then. I apologize for that. But we stopped at 16 green, and I told him I wanted to go see the hole in the green. So I jumped up, ran up there and looked at that hole, and I couldn't believe how big that hole was. Well, once I started playing golf, that was the last time I ever balled that. So, and then that day, he said, he was a caddy, and he said, he took us out to on River Bluff Road to see the golf course that used to be out there. I didn't know anything about that, of course, but there used to be a golf course out on River Bluff Road. It's called Hillcrest Golf Course, and that was a 9-hole golf course that started in 31 and closed in 36. So I'll show a little bit about that when I get into that. Now, I have a tendency to get opinionated, so my family's here to help. If I get too much, they're going to go like that. If I get off on a tangent, they're going to get that signal. They're going to shut up. And please, ask questions, interrupt me anytime we can get back on this, because it works best if you do. This is a long presentation if I go all the way through it, and I'm going to probably end up having to skip some, but I think you'll be interested in it. These are the questions that I always get asked. When did golf start in Bedford? Where was the first course? How many courses have been located in Bedford? What's the history of Otis Park? What was the original layout of Otis? Where was the first 9 holes? What are some well-known people tied to golf in Bedford? Who've been the head professionals at Otis? What does Fred Otis's will really say? And I have a copy of the will sitting there in that back left corner, and you're welcome to go over and pick that up and look at it. And what is the future for Otis Park Golf Course? Golf started in Bedford in 1916. This is an article that was in the Daily Mail, and it says right there, the Bedford Golf Club, Bedford, Indiana, and that was located at 24th Street between I and N. And that's hard to read for me. These were some of the people involved, and what was interesting about that course, they had a tournament that summer. And if the next slide shows the scores, and it was a 9-hole golf course, but then it switched and became a 6-hole golf course. So, and I don't know what year that happened, but that was the first golf course that we had in Bedford called the Bedford Golf Course. And that is when it was 6 holes. And here you see, they set a course record right there. And they had a maximum of 25 members on that course, and they were trying to get it up to 50. And it was on, I don't know how many acres that really was located there, but it was, like I said, between I and N, and just south of 24th, 25th Street in that area. And I know that course was open at least till 1922. I've read different things that it closed early, but here the Rotary Club had a meeting, and it says that they played golf at the Bedford Golf Club, and then they went to a horseshoe team, play horseshoes out at the country club. So the country club at that time was located where the church camp was. It had opened up. They purchased that land in 1914. And this is more proof of where that golf course was. In 1924, they were selling that land, and so I also have an overhead version of Google Maps on there, which is the kind of give you a location idea too. It's right up in this area here, and so that's the first golf course in Bedford. And how many courses had been in Bedford? That one was the first. Then we had the Bedford Town and Country Golf Club from 1923 to 35. The Hillcrest Golf Course in 31 to 35. 36 was they started and then ended up having to stop. And then Otis Park from 1935 to now. So if you think about that, Otis Park, where we play golf now, this is 100 years since that course has been there.
Wow.
Here's the, I'm going to jump ahead to the Hillcrest Golf Course because it runs into the Otis Park Golf Course. But the Frank Owen owned that. And if you notice, one of my teasers I sent out, there was a guy there, and I said he was tied to both golf courses in Bedford. Frank Owen worked, the guy's name, he owned Otis Park for a while. His name was Tobe Hurt. And Frank Owen worked for him, and Hurt was a big member of the Republican Party, and he found out that Frank Owen voted Democratic one year, and so he let him go.
Oh dear.
And so Frank owned land down River Bluff Road, and he moved here, and he had a son that wasn't well, but he built that golf course. And his grandson, I think it was his grandson, it might have been his son, drew this layout for him. And this is the clubhouse. This is where the clubhouse was. This is River Bluff Road coming in here. And the first hole was a par 5 that was between trees coming down through here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you get a 6 and 7 here is where Highway 37 is now, where it cuts through down through the just west of Hillcrest Circle. And then, okay, next slide, Joe. This is the clubhouse. David and Kathy Thorne now live in that house. And I knocked on their door one day and said, "Could I come in?" And I showed them where the showers were. I read a lot about it. And this was just a very friendly atmosphere golf course. I guess the country club was a little bit different. They had a little driving range behind it. They had fish fries every Wednesday night. They had regular tournaments. They had a problem at a country club, and the pro quit at the country club, ended up coming out here to be the pro. So it was a nice, it sounds like it was a really nice course, but the Depression just killed it. And as you know, in Bedford, in Lawrence County at least, the Depression didn't hit us so bad early in the 30s. It was later on because the stone mills had orders out there that went on for a few years, but then when they ran short of the orders, and so they had to close because of that. Plus, Frank Owen died in 1932.
Dad, didn't you say Frank Owen was Fran's dad? Fran Bond?
Frank Van Bottom's grandfather.
Grandfather.
And this is where that course is located, and the clubhouse is right there. And this is Highway 37 coming through those 2 holes I told you about. The first hole went from about there down through here, and it looks like a beautiful area for golf.
Wasn't her dad's name Frank too?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Now, Otis Park history. This started with William and Mary Ragsdale. In 1865, he bought the land and started building the red brick. And the red brick, there were 10 rooms originally in the red brick. It took 3 years to build that place. Every room was a different type of wood. They brought a guy in from Ireland. His nickname was Irish Jimmy. He spent a whole year in there doing just the woodwork on the bedrooms. And then Mr. Ragsdale made some bad loans and ended up having to sell the property. And he ended up parceling or sending it off in parcels. And he sold 97 acres to Nathan Hall in 1875 at a sheriff's sale. Now there's a discussion on how much that cost. $7,600. I don't know how a sheriff's sale works, but the total cost I think was $7,600. So the rest that was taxes. But Nathan Hall got that property. Joyce and I went over and looked, and it was $875. And the home was valued at that time at $25,000. He sold that property to Alvin Toe Hurt in 1899, and he was big into cows, and he turned it into a dairy farm. He built a new barn right at the Brook Knoll entrance. And cows used to roam over Brook Knoll, believe it or not. And then when he died in 1921, and the property was sold to the country club, and they bought it for $28,125, and they added $25,000 in improvements, and that included building a pool, having to renovate the red brick. And the red brick has probably been renovated more than any building in town. It must have been fixed up 10 times. But they ended up having to file bankruptcy, and Stone City Bank took it over in '33. For a short time, they changed the name to the Pine Hall Golf Club, but that didn't take off. And then Fred Otis purchased the property in October 30th, 1935, and in 3 hours gave it to the city. So he got it for $18,500, and he hated golf. I'm crazy as far as he was concerned, but I don't know who's crazier, somebody to buy that much land and give it away in 3 hours, but it's an interesting story on how he bought the land. This is the Ragsdales. Next slide is Nathan Hall. Nathan Hall is the guy that started the Blue Hope Quarry. He's one of the two guys I know that's father of Indiana limestone. This is Tobe Hurt. He never lived at the Red Brick. He bought the land, he was running the prison, warden of prison in Jeffersonville at this time, and there was a prisoner serving a life sentence that had developed a method to creosote, to do the creosoting of timber. And somehow another album came up that he purchased it from that guy. And within a few years, he had 15 plants over the United States, creosoting stuff, and became a multimillionaire overnight. And he started Hirschborn Farms. And if you know what Hirschborn Farms is, and it's the house he had there, the red brick, still in one little side room. That's how big the home he had there. But he got a little bit of tax trouble too, because he ran his business out of the red brick, but didn't pay the taxes. So, but he died in 1921. Now this guy is the original designer of Otis Park. Now we've got some golf clubs from him that he designed.
You want the damn bush.
These are hickory shafted clubs that he designed. It got his name on the back of it. And you talk about these guys, how much golf they play, and they had to do walking. Well, this is a type of bag. So my golf bag is 10 times the size. But there's ties everybody has an interesting tie to each other when we get into who designed Otis Park. This is the original 9 holes. Now this gets a little bit tedious when I go through this. Number 1 was old number 17 before the range was built. So I don't know how many of you remember that, but Number 2 was to the where the practice green is now. From the ladies' tee, they played it back a little bit of that. Number 3 is what now is number 1. Number 4 was a par 4 that they teed off right where number 4 green is and went to the top of the hill. Number 5 was a hole that went just south of that green tee and then down to where 6th green is now. Number 6, we teed off between 6th green and 7T and went up to where 5 green is. Then you walked up a little bit. 5 green was really a little bit north at that time, and then you walked up. Number 7, what is now what is 16, but it was a straight in shot. And then this is the hole that intrigues me, the 618 yards. Now the average distance for one of those clubs, a driver would go about 220 yards. That tee was where 12 green is now, 2 where 17 green is. So this was a championship golf course by any means at that time. So that would be like right now playing a 900-yard hole. And we have it had to be, and they must, like I said in the teaser that I put out, they must have revolted at that time because they ended up moving the tee over to where it is now. And actually, then they moved it on the other side of the road for a short time, so it was 560, and then they moved it to 540, which is what we always played it as a kid. And then number 9 is what number 18 is now.
Do you want the map?
Yeah. This is the map of what we have now. So, as I was saying, the first hole started back here and went to 17 green, and then we had a par 3 here to the practice green. Then you went what was number 1. You teed off here and went up to the top of the hill. Then you went down here, and then the 6th green. You teed off here and went. There was a green like right here. Then you teed off here and went to 16 green now. And then you teed off right there and went all the way over here.
That's the 600.
That's the 618 yards. You had to lay up for the creek, so it had to be. Like I said, they quickly changed that and moved it back to there. And then the 18th hole was about where the white tee is now.
9th hole.
Yeah, the 9th hole was which is 18 now. These are the hickory shafted clubs I was talking about. That gives you the idea of the distance. So most of these guys played a brassy, which was a 2-wood. So they didn't have to carry as much, so they would just carry 1 wood. And mid-iron was a 3-iron, mashie was a 5-iron, 7-iron was a mashie niblick, and a niblick was a 9-iron. And that's the average distances that you hit those clubs at that time. So just to give you an example, the mashie niblick, which is a 7-iron, was 125 yards. Well, now a 7-iron average distance for a good golfer is probably just a shade under 200 yards. There's 3 people to thank for Otis Park. Fred, not just Fred Otis, but Doug Smiley. Doug was 26 years old when he walked into Fred Otis's office and said, I want to take you out for a ride today after the papers go in the press. And Fred Otis told him to get out of the river. He didn't have time. Well, he got interested and came back out and said, okay, what are you talking about? Where do you want to take me? So he took him out. Doug Smiley he was a member of the Rotary Club, and he used to eat, at the meals they'd have, he would sit with Henry Martin, who was the president of Stoughton City Bank. Henry told him that the golf course, they were going to foreclose on it. He said, well, how much you owe? He said, or how much do they owe? He said, $18,500. So he took Fred Otis out to the golf course, and the road through the golf course only went up to where number 6 17T is now. So he took him there and said, look how beautiful this is. And Fred Otis was a man that loved nature. He loved flowers. He was kind of an eccentric man. To give you an idea, he wore long clothes, long underwear, year-round. He wore long sleeve black shirts every day. And they said that they knew it was a hot day because he'd roll up his sleeves in the summer, but his long underwear would still be. And he sat in the corner office in the southeast corner of the Times Mail. He refused to use a typewriter. He did everything longhand, and he carried a basket to work every day, and he would walk home and buy his groceries at night. He lived at 21st and H Street, and he lived, his family, he had 3 sisters and himself. None of them ever got married. They all lived in that house together. And anyhow, Doug took him out there and explained to them that this golf course was for sale. And he said, why would I buy a golf course for crazy old men? So, but the next day, he called Doug Smiley in and said, contact the bank. I'll write him a cashier's check and we'll buy it. So that's what he did. And next slide, please. And this is Doc Murray. Doc Murray was the mayor at that time. I cut his grass when I was in high school. Bill, I think you did too, didn't you, Bill? And he, in 5 weeks' time, he was the mayor of Bedford. In 5 weeks' time, he arranged to get $179,000 and put 343 people to work at the golf course. And that amount ended up being $345,000 over that time. And they renovated the red brick again. They put in 3 miles of road. Now, I don't know where 3 miles of road would go through there, but that's what it says. And they did 10,000 feet of fence, redoing the whole fence through the area. They put in 9,000 feet of water lines through the place. They renovated the pool. The country club had originally had a pool, and they made it a 40 by 80 foot pool, and all of us kids played, swam in that pool. When I was younger, we used to play golf all day long. We'd wait for Homer's lights to go off. As soon as Homer's light would go off, we'd sneak up over the fence and go swimming. And if we were too loud, Homer's light would come on, and we'd all sneak out. But what these 3 guys did was amazing, because that's the best picture I could find of him. I'm sorry for the quality of it, but it's amazing. And they were all young men, except for Fred Otis, of course. But he was 32, I think, 33 years old. Name was Fred Otis. Now, we wonder who did the redesign at the golf course, who did the design. And it really comes down to 3 architects. This is Arthur Lockwood. Arthur Lockwood won the Massachusetts State Amateur 3 times. He was director of golf at French Lick. There was at one time going to be a golf course at the Bedford Mitchell Airport, which is 7 miles, at that time, 7 miles south of Bedford. He designed that, but it didn't come. Hillcrest course got built before they could build that, which kind of put an end to that. But he designed the second 9 holes at Otis Park. And if you ever thought about Otis Park, if you think about it, the way it's situated, you got an inner 9 holes and you got an outer 9 holes essentially. Like you've got with the old design, you had 8 and 9 on the outside, 6 and 7 kind of on the outside, and then you had 16, 17, and 18 all on the outside. All the other courses are laid inside. The reason it isn't like that is when they built the second 9, everybody could still play golf. And there's been all kinds of different iterations at Otis Park, just because it took construction to build the course so long, because they didn't have the water ability that they have now, and they had to rely so much on weather. So there were a lot of different holes in that golf course that I haven't been able to figure out yet. This is Arthur Lockwood. He was good friends with Francis Wilmette. And Francis Wilmette won in 1903, I think, Open. And Lockwood was good enough golfer that he tied for 11th and, as an amateur in the 1905 U.S. Open. And then there's the other designer, Bill Diddle. Bill Diddle designed well over 300 golf courses in the Midwest. And he won the Indiana State Amateur 5 times, shot his age over 2,000 times. He lived to be 101 years old. And we'll go through his design a little bit later. This is the paper that proves that it was Lockwood that designs our course. It mentioned it right in there. Okay, Joe. And this is
That's the Zoom.
Okay, that's members of the board realizing the great responsibility connected with the laying out of the new 9 holes brought to this city architect Arthur G. Lockwood. So that proves that he did. And matter of fact, that guy has now gotten credit for designing Augusta Country Club. Not Augusta National, but Augusta Country Club. They determined that he did that golf course. Now this is the hole as he designed it. And the first hole, I'll try to be quick on it. The first hole was Old 17, and then he went over to where Old 9 was, and you came back that way. So then what we now call 10, 11, 12, 13, he called 3, 4, 5, and 6. 12 was a par 3. The tee is where the ladies' tee is now, and it went to the top of the hill. I can imagine a 200. They only could hit it 220 yards, and they had a 250-yard par 3 up a hill. So that is part of it. And then they came back on and played what is now 16 and 18, which was 7, 8, and 9. 10 was Old 17. They moved the tee back a little. 11 was, I take that back. 10 was number 1. 11 was number 2. 12 was what we call number 3 now. 13 was what we call 4. Then we had 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the 9th hole was again to where the practice green was. So that was his design. That design was really never put in.
Those are all the descriptions of that, right?
That's all the description that we went through on that. And, okay. Now this was a tournament they held October 3rd, 1937. And I have never figured out where these holes were. They started on a par 4, and then the second hole was a par 3. And then there's par 5. There's 6 par 3s and 3 par 5s. And I had no idea. I'm trying to figure out where they went. And my only guess is everything was under construction at this time. And so they had to have temporary tees. And they had some of the best golfers in Indiana playing this tournament. This was a very championship golf course. People came from miles and miles to play this golf course. Because at that time, it was the best around. Now Bill Diddle came in, and Bill Diddle more or less took the design. This is a couple of years after the Lockwood design, and he changed the holes, or changed some of the design. Here you can see number 1's no change, and then again he said move the tee back to the left of the first green, which is where 2T is now, and then they rebuilt a new 2 green essentially, and moved the tee back to the right of the second green. Number 4 when I was a kid, there was a ladies' tee there right next to the sycamore tree. I'm sure the ladies remember that hole as a ladies' tee. And he said the fairway was further right. I don't know if this boring to all the people that don't know their golf course. But this is what is interesting to me, is trying to figure out where everything went. Then playing number 5 is playing from a point to the left of the 4th green to the present 6th green, which is number 5. And Dad even told me at one time when they were going through all this that the 7th hole, you teed off on what is number 6 now. You shot straight out, and then you went down to 7th green. So there were enough trees there, and they put the tee close enough to the trees that it was almost a 120-degree dog leg. I won't go through all these.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the ones I say, I haven't played some of these holes. This is 17 tee here, and this is 17 green. Except they made a hole that went from here to here. And that was, as a matter of fact, they put the tee back in here.
Now that's the present driving range, right?
Yeah, this is the driving range. And you can see the sand trap next to that. And then the next hole, there was a tee right here. You can still see the flat area if you go there. And they went to this green, right here, the practice green. And I always wondered when I was a kid, why would they put 2 traps right there that were so short? Because when you teed off here, you really had to hit a bad drive to get in there. And, I did it also. It was because they were playing, it was for this hole to keep you from playing down this fairway. They wanted you to stay over here. And you can see, if you look here closely, they had a little practice green right here at that time. And also, like I said, at some time they played par 3 from right here down to 6th green, or right here. Right here.
Yes.
So, but look at the lack of trees.
That's what I was thinking. I was sitting there thinking, wow, because those trees, there's no trees. And there wasn't too many years after that, there were a lot of trees.
Right there, that walnut tree is still there. And Homer, we could never get a drive up there. Now these young kids, they drive up to that walnut. But Homer's the one that came in and really planted all the trees and lined the fairways and everything else.
It's not much closer.
This is the old footbridge at Otis that they replaced with the stone bridge. This is close up to where number 12 T is, and this was taken in the 1900s. Okay, Joe. Yeah. And there's an old picture of Pine Hall.
And that's the bridge between 10 and 18.
That's the bridge between 10 and 18. Yes. Okay. And there's Homer at the Rock Garden. And Homer for years, along with the Ladies Club, took care of that rock garden, and probably at least said about that right now. They don't take care of that the way it should be right now. And this is the ones I mentioned. There was something hidden, or not hidden. There was something put inside this post, and the next slide tells you what it was, and it says a copper box containing historical data concerning the park and other articles. And I got, when Shauna was mayor, I got her permission to get that out of there. And so we went down, we had about 3 or 4 guys from the city, and we were hunting, trying to locate it. And we never could find it. When we read that, it said it was behind the inscription tablet. Well, I talked to Brian Elliott. Brian said he could come out at that time. He was working at Stonewall. He said he could bring out the equipment. We could take off the tablet and get in behind and get that. And I said, okay. But then I was laying home at night, and I was thinking, if we destroy that thing, I'm the one that would get the credit for destroying the historic monument. So we never went any further. But there is kind of like a time capsule hidden behind that inscription. That would be invaluable to me if I could see what's there. This is, now look at the trees at Otis Park.
Wow.
And this is the front nine. They're doing work on the range. They're trying to flatten that hill a little bit. And the little pavilion that they built here, I would like to see that named for Doug Smiley. I mean, without Doug Smiley, we wouldn't have that, and have the golf course. And this picture was Kevin Hudson did this for me, and it's just it just shows you what a wonderful place we have to play golf. These are the different Otis Park professionals. Everett Leonard was the first one. Bob Peoples. Is there anybody related to Bob Peoples in here? Okay. Bob Peoples got in a little trouble when he went on a trip to Indianapolis. And had to spend the night someplace he didn't want to spend the night. And so he didn't last very long. So they brought Everett's brother, Herman Leonard, in to be the pro. There were 6 Leonard brothers, and they were all golf pros. And then when he left, Lester Smith took over, and then these 2 guys were more or less managers. And then Frank Champ was probably the best pro that we ever had as far as ability to play golf. He did very well in the PGA tournament, finished 4th a couple times. He also played in the 1953 Masters tournament. He left here in 1941 over a salary dispute. He was being paid $125 a month, and he got to live at the Red Brick with all utilities paid. And Park Board at that time decided that they should lower that to $75 and have him pay everything. And he told them, no way. So they lost an exceptional golfer at that time. Tom Rohn came in. Anybody related to Tom Rohn? Tom Rohn was a pro for a while, and some money went missing, and then Tom Rohn wasn't the pro after that. So, there was no pro for till 45. Then 46, they brought Herman Leonard back, and he stayed for 8 years, and he was let go. And Homer came in. Homer is the one that I played more golf with Homer and learned more off of him. When Homer and I didn't get along to start, I liked to practice a lot. He didn't like me to practice a lot. Homer and I became extremely close. He was more or less forced out at the end, and he was a good man. And he did a lot of good things at the golf course. And one thing, the picture I posted online with me in the 1969 team, there's a little story there. We finished 2nd in the sectional that year, and what is the 9th hole now was the 18th hole at that time, and we lost by a stroke. I bogeyed the last hole, but what happened on that last hole, I hit my drive, or my second shot rather, to the right side of the green. I was behind that pine tree that's still there, right up against the stone. But Homer had a flower garden there. If you remember Homer's flower garden rules, you weren't even allowed to walk in and get your ball. Everybody did, but if you couldn't play it well, I got a free drop because of that. Fuzzy Zeller is on the Albany's team, which is the team that won, threw an absolute fit that I got a free drop out of that. And it took a 10-minute delay before we got everybody calmed down and I could play, and then I flubbed my chip and we ended up bogeying, we ended up losing by a stroke. But then Wimpy Riggs came in for a year, Larry Siddons for a year, and then Carl was March. Everybody knew Carl. He was superintendent for 81 to 92, and then we went without a pro for a while. And Craig Hebert came in, then Steve Terry, Jason Calhoun, Mike Mahoney, Aaron Harrell, Taylor Grader, and now we have John Burgess. Quickly, I'll go over what the will really says for Otis Park. The Pine Hall Mansion will be kept in repair as a showplace and museum and community hall. In no case shall it be a public comfort station or clubhouse, because it was a clubhouse. When the country club had it, it was a clubhouse. A large stone band shell shall be constructed. A pavilion or shelter house will be constructed at the top of the hill. A baseball diamond will be built, and if you notice, it says the diamond is intended as a public playground for the youth of East Bedford. And then a stone bridge will be built there by 12T. They'll maintain the trees in the northeast corner of the land. Landscaping shall proceed. Not less than 4 Sunday afternoon concerts shall be given in the band shell each summer. And he said you can purchase good music. And this is the one other part of the will which I've never really understand what it says. I think I understand what it says. And it says whatever the maximum amount spent on any park in Bedford, they have to equal that amount at Otis Park. Now, I don't know who oversees that, but in case they would spend $10,000 at Thornton Park, $5,000 at Murray Forest Park, and if that was how much went out for maintenance, then they're supposed to pay a minimum, according to his will, $10,000 at Otis, and I don't know who oversees that. Okay, now some of the interesting people.
You're doing good.
Fred Wampler Jr. Fred is one of the 2 people that have been players out here at Bedford that I know later on the PGA Tour. Craig Bowden, as you remember, he played on the Korn Ferry Tour and played on the PGA Tour and did exceptionally well in some U.S. Opens. Fred Wampler was a special guy. He was, I don't say that because he went to Purdue, but he did end up going to Purdue. And he was the NCAA champion. Let's go to the next picture. This is when he won the NCAA champion, not sure what year that is.
1950.
1950. And when he was at Purdue, he was the individual Big Ten champion 3 years. And he won the Indiana. Go to the next one. Go. He served in the Army during World War II, and he was in the Pacific period. And I guess that from what I've been told, that changed him somewhat. I knew him and didn't know what he was like before, of course. He won the Indiana State Amateur a couple times, and he was runner-up one year. He turned pro in 1950. He won 3 PGA tournaments, and he lost 57 Greensboro Open to Sam Snead. He was the head pro at Denver Country Club for 17 years. Won numerous tournaments in Colorado. He played a total of 14 U.S. Opens and 13 PGA championships, and he was later pro at French Lick. And like I said, 2 guys became pros from Otis, and I was lucky enough to get to play with both of them. Fred I played with maybe a half a dozen times. Craig I probably played a couple hundred times with at least. So he was a nice guy. This is the one guy that I wish I could have played with. He's got a sad story, but his name was the one I remember looking on who won the city tournaments. Everybody goes out there and wonders who won, the guys about who won the city tournaments. He'd won it 4 times. And then he kind of disappeared. I didn't know what had happened to him. But look what he was like in high school. He was on the boy sponsors for his sophomore, junior, and senior year of High White Club, his junior and senior, the varsity debating, junior and senior, band all 4 years, baseball, freshman, sophomore, Latin club, Latin and history club, pioneer staff, president of the senior class, and after he left Bedford High School, after he graduated, he went to Dartmouth. He was president of the Dartmouth freshman class, and he was on the Dartmouth golf team. And he left and went to IU, and then he went to business school at IU, and then he left that to join the public service. Okay. And he was coming to play the grand opening of the oldest golf course in 1937, and they were doing work on Highway 50 at the Medora exit, and he ran head on to a truck carrying lumber, and he died at 26 years old. And that had to be terrible for them. They talked about not playing the tournament. Everybody loved this guy. He was he won the Wilmington City Championship when he lived up there a year. He was just sounds like he was a tremendous guy.
And he's buried in Green Hill?
Yes. His family, he had a brother who had some issues and had to be institutionalized. So his mother lost 2 sons and a father within a few years. Well, this is Wimpy Riggs. There's a lot of things about Wimpy that people don't know. He received the Bronze Star for his action in World War II. He was in Patton's Army. He studied under 3 pros that were famous pros: Judge McSpadden, Byron Nelson, and Sam Snead. He attended Purdue on a basketball scholarship, and he got 4 letters in baseball, football, basketball, and track, but not golf. he didn't play golf. And that's a younger Wimpy when he won the city tournament and with Arch Force here. This is Tom Barton. I don't know how many of you have been out to Green Hill, but this is the interesting part about this sculpture is they had one sculptor be the model for that sculpture, the guy, and it's made from granite that was quarried in Vermont, and it's made from a picture that was taken the day he died. He was at French Lick playing golf and had a heart attack, and they took him into the lounge and he passed away. He won the city tournament in 1935 and he died in 1937. But this was the very day that he died, and this picture, so it's amazing. This is Homer. This was the year he, as I said, he was forced out. And that's Homer on the far right. Rule Steele is next to him. This is Ivan Berninger. Ivan was the mayor that hired Homer. This is Bob Williams and Arch Forth. Now, his son, Steve Williams, was a tremendous golfer and became a doctor and ended up dying of skin cancer. These are all the women's champions. I'm sorry for the quality of that slide, but these, I believe, Betty Lou won it 13 times. Is that correct, Betty Lou?
Yes.
Your mom, Marcia, won it 7 times?
How many more minutes? 7? 6 or 7?
7, yeah. And
She and Betty Lou battled back and forth.
it was tough to go back and find these early ones, but Eddie Smiley was Edna Smiley, and that was Doug Smiley's mother, or wife, excuse me. And she ended up winning it 5 times, I think. But that is a list of all the female women's city champions. And this is a list of all the men's city, and there's Miles Standish, and there's Tom Barton in 1935, and there's Colton Flick. Colton Flick was Jim Flick's father. Jim Flick is the one that became the instructor that also Mark Wood tutored under Jim Flick. And Donnie Gretzer has won 8 times, has won this tournament 8 times. Here's Craig when he won it. And here's Fred Wampler Sr., and Fred Wampler Jr., who had to beat his father that year to win.
Oh.
this is me,
I love that.
that year I was telling you about, and my pants are longer, I promise. That was the style at that time, I
I
hope.
bet you had a
I
growing,
hope.
I bet you had a growing spurt.
But this was Jim Taylor. Jim Taylor was our #1 golfer, Chris Johnson, Steve Pearson, and the best golf coach that I ever played under. I played under a good golf coach at Purdue, but this guy was special. And I could tell stories about Mr. Lee all the time. And as far as I say what the future of Otis Park is, this is something I don't understand. This is what visitors to our city that stand on the first tee, this is what they look down and see. This is the old caddy house. It was damaged in a storm, I don't know, 5-7 years ago. And this is where my opinion come in. I don't understand why. It's the cheapest building to renovate and fix at that golf course. And we had left it sitting like that for years. And there's no excuse for that. This is when I was playing golf this May 12th this year. And this was on the 10th hole. And it was a beautiful sky. I had to take a picture of it. But I was between a 6 and a 7 iron. I didn't know which club to hit. And if I looked up at the sky, I'd seen that I did hit the 6 iron. And I ended up birdieing the hole that day. So that was a nice intervention. And so one last picture of the golf course in the early morning when I play. And that's it. Any questions?
I have a comment. You were talking about the Caddyshack, and that's a disgrace. But has anyone noticed that the road is falling in? I mean, you're going to be driving along here and end up in the creek.
The road is falling in. Our bridges are in bad shape. You could drive off the bridge on 10 right now. But the guardrails on the side of that need to be fixed. Same thing with the bridge on 12. And if you remember, Homer used to always maintain the wall on the creek around at Big Bend. He always took care of that. It was free-flowing water around the Big Bend at that time, and that wall is now caved in. And when we had a big rain, but every time now, 17 fairway floods.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen when I was younger, and it has to be because they don't keep that up the way it overflows. The creek overflows so much easier right there than what it used to.
All the young guys were always out working. Were you guys working for Homer, any of you?
No, we didn't work. We worked for Roy for Wimpy.
Oh, okay. Kenny, did you work out there?
Yep.
Of course, I just remember Homer would always come around and make sure everybody was working, and you guys.
Yeah, Homer had a way that, I'd be cutting tees, and I'd be running out, because what would happen is he would take you on his truck, and he'd drop you off someplace on the golf course, and we'd push load all the tees and all the greens. And when you ran out of gas, you got a break, because you had to sit there and wait for him to come. But somehow or another, he figured out within 5 minutes when you were going to run out, so you never got too long a break. Yes?
Were those stones along the roads, is that a WPA project?
Yes. The original stone wall was built by 2 guys named Pat and Mike, that also came from Ireland. And they were here, they took residence in the red brick in the 1860s. And they built the wall around some of the property. How much, I don't know. But WPA came in and put in 10,000 feet of fence.
So that was the fence you're talking about, those rocks?
Yes, and Pat and Mike, when they did it, they got the stone out of Leatherwood Creek.
Well, you mentioned the Caddyshack for repair.
Yeah.
Just up the road, you got a cave in where you got some.
I agree.
That's what I'm talking about, the road falling in.
Interesting story about the Caddyshack too, where it was located. The caddies dammed up the creek down below that, and that's where they go down and cool off during the day. I didn't put a whole lot about caddies because it would run into a longer thing, but that building would be full. And I never did really understand it. This is where the caddy master stay, or if that was a bathroom, I'm not sure. But it's a shame that in the way some of this stuff, they're letting it go.
Who is ultimately responsible for that? Who would you talk to about it?
It's the responsibility of the city of Bedford.
Money goes straight to the mayor.
If nothing else, to maintain it. You know, when Fred Otis died, he left his entire estate to the city. And that turned out to be right at $190,000. And that money, the interest on whatever however they invested, and that money, the executor of that time was the Stone City Bank. Now, Stone City Bank is sold, or I don't know.
They're no longer in existence.
That's right. Who the executor is now.
German American became.
Whoever is the executor now, I don't know. But, yeah, it's dangerous to
That's scary.
go up there now.
Kenny, did you caddy?
Yes, I was a caddy. Matter of fact, Ed Vorse won the city tournament. I caddied for Ed. When Bob Hendricks won the city tournament, I caddied for Bob. I remember Bob, after the last hole of match play, he turned around and gave me a $20 bill, which was $15 more than you got for caddying.
Our brother caddied. Did you guys go down in that caddy shack?
No, we never used the
Okay,
caddy
that's right.
shack. Usually at that time,
My dad was a caddy.
was it?
Yeah.
He said, matter of fact, Jim Fox's dad was a caddy master.
Coleman Flick sounds like he was a heck of a golfer. He was,
Yeah, he was.
Coleman Flick, there's many articles in the newspaper about Coleman Flick, and he regularly drove number 7 green. Now, that's long ways, there's no doubt about it. But I've seen that golf course so hard before we had watered fairways. I remember one summer that we had a drought, and when you hit a drive on number 6, if you went down the left side of 6 fairway, it would go to the wall on it. There was nothing to stop it. There was the grass had all burned out. You could actually stand in the 6 fairway, drop a ball, and it would roll to the wall. And I've never seen a course that hard as it was that one summer.
We'll make a point to get that
Okay.
taken care of. Because you're right, it should be.
This question and the comments about Frank Owen. What golf course did the Owen family?
Hillcrest Golf Course.
Hillcrest. There was Old Frank that I'm going to refer to him as Old Frank.
Right.
I knew Young Frank, which would be like a grandson, I believe. Young Frank had a lot of coffee at the Gables restaurant with Young Frank, and he'd be old enough to be like my generation older than me. Is there anybody here that's related to Frank Owen?
Friend.
That you knew Frank and his wife?
Sure.
Sure. Frank smoked a lot of cigarettes, and he went to the Gables restaurant, so I had a lot of coffee with young Frank, the type of person who'd say, James, did I take my medicine for the morning? I'd have to remind him, did he take his medicine every morning? There was a time when he picked up a granddaughter. He says, don't let me forget to pick up my granddaughter at kindergarten class. But the part that I remember is they owned some land in this county, a lot of land, but they lost 2 generations within the same year or two, like his grandfather and father all died. And then, so that's all I want to say about Frank Owen. I'm glad to know him. He's also a Purdue graduate.
And a World War II veteran.
Yes, he was. He was a World War II veteran.
And Shirley was a volunteer here in the early years after we moved into this building.
I have just short time for a couple of stories that I was going to tell if I had time. One story I remember at the golf course with Kathy's Uncle Tom. He was playing golf on number 10, and before we had cart paths, carts went all over the place. And he went up the left side of the hill on number 10, cart tipped over and broke his leg. So he went to a local doctor, not Dr. Creighton or Dr. Mouse, but had his leg set and got home that night, and he started complaining to his wife. He said, you know, my other leg hurts. So I must have done something that, well, it turned out they set the wrong leg. And one other story, I remember we were playing golf. This was a high school team. There were 4 of us. We were playing number 8. And one of the guys we were playing with hit his, we call him Rob. He hit his drive over close to the wall on 8. And he looked the shot over. He didn't have a swing to the green, but he decided he'd try to ricochet it off that wall and he get it up there. Well, he took a pretty good swing at it, and it hit the wall, and it came back and hit him where you don't want to be hit. And so there were 4 guys rolling on the ground, 3 of us laughing, and 1 of them. That's for some reason I remember that day. Okay. Any other?
This once a month.
That's something I want to say. There are programs like this once a month, and
It's the best kept secret in Bedford.
yeah,
Really?
It really is. They have great programs.
I think you would all enjoy. And again, if you want to look at anything there, I've got Fred Otis's will. I got the 3 scrapbooks that show a lot of the ladies' club information. And we've got seedling patches for you to take home if you want to take them home.
And a donation jar.
Please do. One of the old golf bags there, like I said. And there's a trophy that they call the Director's Cup, and it has Miles Standish and Fred Walters Jr.'s name on it. And I just wanted to touch that trophy. Thank you again.
This probably makes people want to take up golf.
Yeah. I played for 64 years, and it's been very enjoyable. I've been out here at Otis for that long, and there are a lot of people that, because of Fred Otis, have made a living in golf. If he hadn't done that, I would have probably never played golf. But it gave me a chance to take up a sport. It's a game that you never win, but you just play.
Yeah.
Kenny, you might tell that you part of the first bogey.
Oh yeah, that's right. The first time I ever played golf, I was caddying for my brother. He asked me on the 3rd tee, he said, well, you want to hit a ball and play a hole? And I said, sure, I'll play. So I hit a driver on number 3, and I topped it. It rolled down about a third of the way up the hill. And so then I chipped up, but I sculled the chip, but it rolled up on the green 3 foot from the hole. I made the putt, so I carved the first hole of golf I ever did.
You might tell them how we used to get ourselves.
Yeah, when we were growing up, I lived over on the north side of Bedford, and over a little back ways past the radio station, and we would ride with our golf clubs on our shoulder, on our bicycles, down through town and down the big hill, and go out and play golf. Get there early in the morning. Then Dad or Mom would pick us up later in the day, but we would play golf all day long.
Sometimes when you guys caddy, you caddy double.
I never caddied double, but once I saw that bag there, that little bag, I thought I didn't think I can easily caddy double. My dad did. I asked him. He said he caddied for 4 people at one time. He said you just walk down the middle of the fairway, and they came over and got the clubs. So, and that's of course when they had a shortage of caddies. So, yeah.
Lee Hutchinson tells about in his book about, or at least he told me, I think he said this book too, on Leatherwood Creek, that he caddied at 13,
Yes.
which would have been in his late 30s. He was born in 25. And he said that and he spent a lot of time in that caddy shack. And he said that they caddied for a quarter.
Yeah.
Homer used to keep carts in there. I think Homer fit 3 or 4 carts in that caddy shack. My first, Homer liked peach brandy. I don't know if you remember. But my first day at work, I was a cart boy for a while, and we parked carts down underneath where the clubhouse is now. And I was backing the cart in, and I hit a file cabinet there, and I found out where his stash was. It was quite an expensive.
Very good.
Okay.